Oh, good morning, Year 9. Welcome to today's lesson. We're going to redo yesterday's lesson. Some of you weren't here, and I think for obvious reasons we need to do it again. But we're going to try it differently, and we're just going to do it on YouTube. So hopefully you can listen to this either on the screen up the front or with your earphones on. But anyway, where are we heading? So today's lesson objective, what we're trying to do today is, firstly, we're just going to be understanding the pre-World War I mood in England during the early 20th century. This is really important for us to get our bearings because we're going to be doing a lot of text from all these wars here, starting from pre-World War I and moving to World War II, the Vietnam War, 2 Iraq wars, and then we're going to look at some asylum seekers in Australia. Now, we probably won't have time to do all of this, but we really just want to start here and go, rightio, let's get our bearings. Let's understand a little bit of how, I'm going to say Australians, but really the West, the English, the Americans viewed themselves leading into war. So that's going to be the first part, is to understand the pre-World War I mood in England. And then following on from that, hopefully we're going to learn some skills in annotating poetry. And we're also going to identify the tone, themes, and a variety of language techniques in Rupert Brooke's The Soldier. So that's what we're doing here. So understanding the pre-World War I mood, tick. Learning some skills in annotating poetry, one of my favourite things to do, but I'm a little bit of a nerd. And finally, identifying the tone, themes, and a variety of language techniques in Rupert Brooke's The Soldier. So we're going to hopefully get into our first poem. As we go through this, what I would encourage you to do is just pause whenever you need. At any time, if you need to pause because I've said something and you want to write it down, go for it. I'm going to actually give moments where you can pause during the lesson, just so you can write things down if you need to. But as you hopefully know already, we are working in the Love and Squalor workbook. So everything I say to do, you should have that information in the workbook or in a copy of the poem, which I gave you yesterday. So let's kick off. Let's kick off with Rupert Brooke, The Soldier, and understand a bit of the pre-war mood. Now, we did do this together in class, but it didn't go too well, so I might just give you time to do it now. So this is in our Love and Squalor workbook, which looks like this. Actually, yours isn't photocopied it nice and colourful like mine. I do apologise for that. But we're going to just kick off reading from page 4. That says page 3 in your book. So actually ignore this little bit down here. It's actually page 3. Anyway, so I'm just going to give you time to read that. But what you are ultimately trying to do here is just, get a gauge on not just who Rupert Brooke was, but what the mood in England was before the outbreak of war. And what I want you also to do is just encourage you to do a bit of active reading. And so this would be to, anytime you come across something like a word or something you don't understand, you go through it and read it. So I'm reading through here. Rupert Brooke, 1887 to 1915, was predominantly a pre-World War I English poet. He was educated at Rugby School and King's College, Cambridge, before suffering an emotional collapse in 1912. And I'll be reading. And then I might be like, ooh, I've come up to a word, Antwerp expedition. What is the Antwerp expedition? So I might do a bit of a Google on my computer over here. Antwerp expedition. It was a war. Okay. So when it says participated in the Antwerp expedition, this is a siege in Belgium. So Rupert Brooke fought in the war. Okay, cool. All right, so I'll give you time to read that. You can either pause it here or listen to my relaxing music. Anyway, no, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, have a pause. Rightio, pause now. Have a read. If you've already done this yesterday, you can just move on, of course. Rightio. Okay, I'm assuming you paused and you've ducked back in. I do just want to draw your attention down to a couple of key terms that will really not just help you understand this unit, but improve your vocabulary for a lot of what we do in English. But anyway, probably one of our main paragraphs is down here. So, when war broke out, England saw its chance to display its imperial power and secure its hegemony across Europe and the world. It was commonly believed that the war would be over by Christmas and England and her allies would emerge victoriously and life will continue in much the same way as it had been prior to 1914. Look, there's some. This is really our key paragraph that helps us understand. And probably the cool words down here, well, I think they're cool anyway, is hegemony, which kind of means dominance, and imperial power. This links to things like rule of nations over another. You don't have to write that down if you don't want to, but it is just a clearer way and a more sophisticated way of writing about those things. But ultimately, yeah, we're seeing the mood before this. So what I want you to do, and this is what we started to do again yesterday, is really just write a sentence. How would you describe the mood? So what is the mood? See, I would be thinking about terms like, well, the mood was clearly optimistic. The mood, you may want to say, was naive, perhaps. Maybe you want to say it was a little bit arrogant. Again, what do you think the mood would have been? But ultimately, going into war, probably different to how we would now. If we went into war right now, I'd be scared. If my children were called up, I wouldn't be thinking, yay, fight for my country. I'd be terrified. What's going on? Something's going to die. And this is very important when we come to read our first poem, is knowing that the mood was very positive about war. You'll be proud for your children to go to war. So that's what we're doing. So I would, in a sentence, just write down a sentence, what you think the mood would be on this sheet, if you would like. Or if you prefer writing in your exercise book, you could do that. All right, I'm going to give you some time to do that. And hopefully you've met our first objective, which is to understand the mood in England before the outbreak of war. So you can pause me at the moment. You can pause here. I'm not very tech savvy, but hey, you can pause here and get going. All right. Write that sentence down, and then I'll get set up for our next part. Okay, so where are we moving on? Okay, moving on. All right, we're going to read The Soldier aloud twice. So all of you should have that in front of you. If not, you can actually get a copy of that on the hub, either in the course outline or in one of the links I've given, or you can get it from me and I can give you a copy. I've got a couple left over. But anyway, we're going to read it twice. And work out what it means. So I might just scroll down to where it is here. And you can read it on your own, but sometimes it's nice to have someone read it for you. And anyway, I get a bit tired of my own voice, but I'm going to read it anyway. So sometimes it's fun to try and read things in accents. I do this sometimes for my classes when they let me. So I think we're reading The Soldier by Rupert Brooke. And I think we should give him a bit of an English accent, and we might do the first time, we might make him sound very pomp and arrogant. All right, let's go with this. The Soldier by Rupert Brooke. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave, once, her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by the sons of home. And think, this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less. Give somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven. Now, that may have been incredibly distracting for you, in which case you may pause it and read it yourself again. But I don't know if that gave you the vibe, but, maybe we can read it in a different accent this time, and maybe we'll make the soldier a bit more cockney, a bit more young, a bit more foolish. And he'll start to talk like this, eh? All righty then. The Soldier by Rupert Brooke. He's a good bloke. He's a poet. He went and fought in the war and he was going to win. All righty, here we go. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped and made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by the sons of home. Or think this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less. Give somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as a day, and laughter learnt to friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven. Oh, an English heaven, it sounds lovely. I love England. I'm going to fight for England. I'm going to die for England, because England is the greatest. Oh, how I love thee. Rightio. What were your first thoughts? What were your first thoughts? Write them down. Write them down here. Initial impressions, or maybe you want to write them in your exercise book. It doesn't really bother me, but maybe you just want to write initial impressions. Write them down on your poem. What did you think about it? Now, try not to say, I really hate poetry, so I thought it was rubbish and I'm not into it. But maybe think a little bit about, okay, what is he getting at? What is the mood here? And to me, it sounds like this guy, Rupert Brooke, really loves England and is happy to die. That's a little bit strange. But, maybe not strange. Who knows? Did you find it strange? Or do you actually read it and you go, you know what? We should think about this in war. This is how we should be. We should love our country. We should be willing to die, and that's why we have Anzac Day. All those kind of things. So, write that down, and you can pause here what your initial impressions of the poem are. I'll give you some time and some thinking music. I would also encourage you to talk to the person next to you about what you thought and what they thought. That's always fun to talk about poems, because, when you're not in school studying poems, that's what you're doing on weekends, right? Talking poems with one another. Okay. Alrighty. What are we going to do now? We're going to do one of my most favourite things ever to do, and it's called annotating a poem. So, how to annotate a poem, or what even is an annotated poem? Basically, an annotated poem is this. This is not the poem we're doing. It's basically scribbling all over a poem, trying to gain meaning, trying to identify techniques, trying to work out what is going on here. So we're going to do a little bit of that. It's actually a really, I shouldn't say fun, because no one else thinks it's fun, but it is great, because poetry is fantastic. It is where the English language comes alive, where we just try and put all the arsenal of what's involved in the English language into small sentences, and so we get to identify that. How exciting. So that's what we're going to do. So these are my 5 steps to doing it. So when you read a poem, you have it out, you have different coloured pens, pencils, highlighters, as pretty as you want to make it. And what you're going to do is firstly, you go through and you highlight or circle or underline the phrase you wish to annotate. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to highlight. You don't have to circle. So you could highlight. You could be, sometimes if I see a little bit of, let's say, I'm trying to find a technique in my lesson things. If I find something like, let's say, sibilance. No, that doesn't work there. Anyway, yes, here we go. there's a bit of alliteration here, technique. So I'll do something like that. But anyway, you can have fun with it. But then you want to label the technique being used. So we're going to call this, even though it's not, but you know what I mean, alliteration. Then you're going to briefly explain the effect of the technique to engage the reader with a harsh k sound. Because creating is harsh. I don't know, I just made that obviously. But that's the effect of the technique. But also, getting into it, you would write down questions you have, and then on the side also you'll be identifying themes, tone, mood, personal reflections. So we have a copy of The Soldier that has been done for you, but I really want you to go, okay, I am going to try and do this myself, because it's actually something you have to do going into year 12. So it's not just because it's fun, but for your assessment, you've got to be able to notice techniques and notice meanings. But I'm a big fan of just getting deep into the poems and trying to gain meaning. So it's meaning from it. So if it was me, just remember you can pause this at any time. But if it was me, this is what I tend to do. I tend not to be obsessed with finding the technique. Okay, all right. So I would read the first poem, the first lines. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. Now, I have questions here. I'm like, well, this is strange. So I'm doing 4 right now. Write down questions you have. This is odd. He says, think only this of me. And I say, and my first thought is, why think of a field in another country when I die? Why only that? What about my heroics? So I'm starting to ask questions, and then I go, oh, this guy really loves England. Rightio. So I'm asking questions. And what's some other thing I see? Oh, I see a little bit of, let's change the color a little bit here. Oh, we've got F. There's a little bit of, I don't want to do that. That looks terrible. A little bit of alliteration. Why? Well, I'll let you work that out. So take the time now just to have a go through and read through it. And as you're doing it, don't forget to be doing things like identifying themes, tone, and personal reflections. And you can always put those on the side. All right, so I'm going to give you time just to do that. You can do it in pairs. I don't mind. Go for it. And see what you come up with. You can pause me right here, listen to a song, listen to some music, though I actually don't think that's the best way to learn, but you've got your earphones on, so how can I tell what you're doing? But yeah, go through and see what you find. Thinking music. You will notice over here that there's definitely alliteration, there is definitely hyperbole, there is definitely personification, there's a lot of religious symbolism and just symbolism in general, and imagery. So don't forget, if you see those things, write it down. Again, if I'm talking too fast, you can always pause. That's the beauty of YouTube. Rightio. Okay. What did you find? Did you find anything interesting? I'm happy for you to come share with me in the class any questions you have. But if you come down here, feel free to pause at this time. Here's some annotation for you. If you look here, here's the poem. Here's some alliteration. Have a little bit of repetition. Some natural imagery. Religious imagery. I'm not going to read through all of these. You can pause at any time. And if you couldn't come up with any of these things, epistolary tone. Epistolary tone basically means letter. It's although he's writing a letter. It's where we get the word the epistles from. Anyway, so have a go at, seeing if your annotations are any different to this. You can pause right now. You can take a screenshot to help you write it down. And we go down here, and here's another one. You can have a look. There's a metaphor, there's alliteration, patriotic tone, symbolism. Write all these things down. And then when we come back together, we're going to share this bit here: questions, tone, mood, themes, personal reflections. And hopefully we can do that while discussing. Okay, so we might just stop there because that means we've met our lesson objectives for today. So I hope you found that helpful. This little lesson here has gone for not that long, but remember, you can pause at any time. Go back to it, but this should give you enough information to get right into the poem. All right, we're going to stop there. Thank you.